Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Enterprise Edge podcast. My name is Mark Vigoroso. I'm the founder and CEO of the Enterprise Edge, coming to you from the Atlanta, Georgia office. Happy to be here on a Thursday afternoon. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Cotten, CEO of Pros Software. We have an exciting agenda planned for you all. This is an active space around pricing and revenue optimization and sales ops that is very near and dear to the hearts of pretty much every corporation on the planet in terms of growing their top line and enabling their sales teams to effectively compete and win. So, Jeff, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Mark.
Thank you so much. So, I'm gonna start us off. You're gonna keep me honest on a couple of these facts and figures that I think I know about Pros, but
Okay.
I'm gonna start off with telling people what I know about Pros in terms of what you do, and then you can correct me. But basically, Pros is in the pricing and quoting and revenue optimization space, building solutions that can help companies manage pricing in a lot more dynamic and adaptive way, boost sales productivity, and improve the customer experience across a multitude of different sales channels. So that's my summary. How did that sound?
You nailed it. The only thing
All
I
right.
actually would add, maybe just quickly, is one of the things that
Yeah.
actually made me want to join Pros is
Yep.
that we truly are an AI native company, right? Everybody's talking about AI, today.
Yep.
But the truth is, this company developed machine language learning models, decades ago that have been embedded in this product for a very long time. So it truly is an AI native company at the same time.
Oh, that's great. That's important. That's an important distinction. We'll talk plenty about that today. And
Yes.
so facts and figures. Again, I'm going to let you correct me with each one. I've got 5 facts and figures, fun facts about Pros and about Jeff Cotten.
All right.
Annual revenue last year. I think you can talk about historicals, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
2024, I think was a little north of 330 million. Is that right?
That sounds about right. I don't know that
Okay.
number offhand exactly, but yeah, that
That's
sounds
okay.
roughly right.
I think it's right. I just want to give people a sense for scope
Yep.
and scale. So,
Size. Yep.
so about 300. You can't talk about guidance or outlook, so we'll skip that one. And I
Correct.
think in terms of geographic scope, in terms of the number of countries, and you may not know this number either, but this is my guess. I think based on research, I think you guys have clients in about 70 or so countries around the world, which maybe the folks who are listening can keep us honest, but that's what I think is true. You can keep me honest on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, once again, I don't know that exact number. What I can tell you is I have personally talked to a lot of customers already, and just about that many countries. We have a broad-based customer base across a lot of industries, but just in airlines alone, we probably get close to that. So,
Yeah. Got it. And then, Jeff, yourself, in terms of a little bit of background. So you're based in Houston, not Austin. I think I read somewhere that you're in Austin, but are you
well,
in
I'm
Houston?
sort of in transition, moving from Austin to Houston, but I'm pretty full-time in Houston these days. Yeah.
Houston. And I believe you are the owner of 2 U.S. patents. Is that correct?
Oh gosh! So actually, all of my patent work was when I was working for a company called EDS, and there's
Yeah.
actually 7 total.
Okay.
But yeah,
There you go. So that's good. These are lesser known facts about
there you go.
Jeff Cotton. And then I think you've been CEO for about 52 days. Does that sound right?
That sounds that's actually 54.
54 days.
54 today.
Okay. So pretty close. Anyway, I know I sprung those on you, but I wanted to make sure people understood a little
That's
bit about
okay.
you.
You're all good.
So let's get into it. So let's talk about AI, shall we? You've seen, and I know Pros as a company, even before your tenure, has been part of the evolution of strategic pricing, more so probably than any solution provider around, right? And seeing it evolve from, notebooks to spreadsheets, right? And now to sort of AI driven, AI native, even more dynamic optimization.
Yep.
And what things have you learned, even in your first, call it less than 2 months? What have you learned about how companies are actually making pricing decisions today, and how aware are they about the quality of those pricing decisions?
Yeah, so this is a really great question,
Yeah.
and I actually may start with your sort of how, where are they? Look,
Yeah.
first of all, most organizations have gotten really sophisticated in how they're making decisions on pricing, right? As you noted, there are still a lot of organizations that use spreadsheets, but what we typically see is those are pretty sophisticated, complex spreadsheets, and now with volatility in the market, as we've all experienced over the last few years, and certainly over the last 6 months, you just can't keep up with things in a spreadsheet anymore. There's so much data that you now need to take into account that are going to drive your costs, that are going to drive buying patterns and buying behaviors, that you need to be able to bring all of that together. And so obviously this is where now AI comes in, right? Because it's great at taking your structured data in and all of your pricing rules and maybe the foundations of what you used to use in a spreadsheet, and now bringing in unstructured data and real-time information about environmentals, raw materials, and how those things are changing what you need to incorporate into your pricing. But specifically, we are seeing organizations today trying to do everything they can to enable their sellers with packaging and proposals and quotes that come together extremely quickly and already have automated logic built into them to be able to drive, what an end price is without them having to huddle with a pricing team, go through all the, environmentals of a specific deal, and then try to produce a quote, right? Everyone's looking to speed that process up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, when it comes to sort of strategy behind AI and the role that AI is playing in your positioning and your branding and your solutioning and your roadmap, are you deliberately taking a leadership position in such a way that you're saying, we're AI native, we're going to lead in some of these emerging tech categories like AI, agentic, and generative, and um, um, or is it more of a pragmatic use case driven ROI driven discussion, or is sort of being that innovator, the disruptor, the AI native, is that a deliberate part of your strategy, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I just stepped in to CEO here
Yep.
a couple of months ago, as we just talked about. But look, what
Yep.
I can tell you from my own personal experiences
Yep.
is that when you try to drive broad-based, innovative change in an organization, the biggest barrier is the lack of buy-in and people digging in their heels and resisting the change, right? I mean, this is
Yep.
no different in the AI, era than it has been throughout humanity and time. And so impact to me is one of the biggest factors in determining whether to lead or to follow. To
Mm.
your question on, do you get out there and get innovative or not? But it
Yep.
has to be paired with the external rate of change that's occurring as well. Those two things to me are sort of the big decision drivers on whether you lead or follow.
Yep.
And I believe that if you've got the luxury of sort of a moderately to slow rate of change, but paired with high impact, the best path is to start slow and small and with a pilot typically. That's what we do internally. It's what we observe the majority of our customers do as well. And this will help you bring the people along to help you drive adoption up the change curve. Right now, the
Yeah.
challenge is that AI, and I don't have to tell anybody who's listening to this today, is I would say impact is 10 out of 10, right? No doubt impact is super high in terms of the impact it's going
Sure.
to have on your business,
Yep.
but the rate of change is also rapid.
Mhm.
I just saw a study this morning about how many VC-backed startups have gotten over the $100 million revenue mark already on just being an agent company alone, and it's
Wow.
staggering.
Wow.
And so when you think about that rate of change, you really don't have the luxury in some cases to start small, and you're sort of forced more into doing, more big bang level change. But that's sort of the framework that we use internally, and certainly that we see a lot of our customers using. And I would tell you, while we've got a lot of prototyping and piloting going on with customers, we're seeing just as many, which is different than it used to be. Sort of saying like, I got to get this implemented today. I don't have time.
Yeah. No, it is staggering the pace, right? And one of my favorite expressions these days is speed over perfection, right? Keep moving. uh,
Totally.
and break some stuff along the way, right? So talking about impact, I'm wondering if 2 months is enough time to give you to speak to maybe some examples of how generative AI, maybe agentic AI, is being applied with some of your customers. With certainly with pros capabilities, maybe not with pros capabilities, but certainly in the context of your client discussions, your customer discussions, a couple examples maybe of how is it being applied in sort of sales and revenue workflows today?
Yeah. Well, let me break it down to you this way because I think this is kind of fun. Everybody's talking about agentic right now, right? It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the phrase du jour. But actually, the way I sort of think about this is breaking it down into two parts. In my view, everyone's gotten just a little too ahead of this, and at the end of the day, I sort of think of this as the mouth and the brain, which I know may be a little crude, but everyone's said about agentic because it's language. Language is not very smooth. These agents have gotten extremely competent at being able to completely converse with you, either auditory or just through text,
Yep.
and but at the end of the day, the agent itself, while the language is there, has got to have that brain behind it that is powering it with data and logic and intelligence. And I don't know that those two distinctions are really getting enough play right now. And frankly, where I think pros actually most squarely plays is more in the intelligence side and the brain and enabling the agent to actually be smart. It's not about really the agent itself for us. And so for pros, we started developing machine learning algorithms many years ago to deliver the right offer at the right price through the right channel every single time. So I call this industrial strength AI that is critical to power every LLM and agent that's out there, right? So now at pros, we've also got our own mouth, we've got our own agents, but our agents have embedded LLMs that are then backed by our CPQ and pricing brains, if you'll forgive the analogy. And one of the things we're really excited about is that we can enable anyone's agents, doesn't have to be just ours, with our brains, with our pricing intelligence to make their agents more intelligent. So I'll give you a really good example. We took an aircraft manufacturer from 45 days on average to turn a quote to 2 hours.
Yep.
And that is the type of scenario that we see with our customers. Our customers play more towards the high end, complex. We help enable our customers with tens of thousands of SKUs. A quote itself may have tens of thousands of SKUs quoted on it. And we can really smash that down and make that much faster. And a lot of that is through the intelligence baked into our product.
It's fascinating. No, I love the analogies work for me. I think that helps. That helps. There's a topic here around trust that I'm very interested in, and it keeps coming up in my travels when it comes to adoption and when it comes to mainstream operationalization of any new technology, really, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust that's required, and I was at a panel discussion the other day. It was primarily talking about SMBs. It was small, medium-sized businesses, and how they had some data points that I should have, but I don't have them on the top of my head. But it was basically saying a lot of SMBs and enterprises are distrustful or skeptical or cynical about whether or not they should believe or trust output from AI assisted, enabled, or operated processes, right? Whether that's generative output that's prompted or whether that's agentic workflow that's executed, whatever it is, right? There's this trust factor. And
Yep.
I'm curious when it comes to pricing. Pricing is a very sensitive area. Forgive the pun, but it's very elastic, right? In terms of the magnitude of impact for very small adjustments, incremental adjustments in some markets, right? And I'm curious, how are your customers thinking about this issue of trust? You've been conditioning them, the company has been conditioning them for years, to your point, with ML and optimization, right? That's machine driven. So it's not it's not
Yep.
it's not it's not without precedent. But I think this is another level. And to your point about being industrial strength, where do you see the trust factor in your customers' minds?
Yeah. Look, it's funny. I would say that this has really sort of burst onto the scenes this year.
Yep.
Trust wasn't one of those things that, at least I heard in conversations a lot over the last couple of years. And I've been sort of playing, especially in the CRM space for a long time now. And, AI powered pricing is a very powerful tool. And many enterprises have adopted it for many years. But to your point, it's, now sort of hitting the C-suite on, should we trust this or should we not? So the first thing I would tell you is that we are really trying to go out of our way to offer transparency through explainability on the pricing that we're coming up with so that we can
Hmm.
give our customers, a confidence factor on understanding the price that we're suggesting that their sales rep should quote or that we're embedding in a quote on their behalf. Has got a transparency calculation to it so they can see exactly how we came up and arrived with that number. And this is actually really critical from an adoption perspective as well, because that's the other thing we see. Our customers have the ability, if they want, to turn on overrides in the system so that their rep doesn't have to take the price that we're necessarily suggesting. And this transparency piece is really important so that we can increase adoption to get the rep themselves comfortable that the price that's been produced is something that is very explainable so they can understand how we arrived at it so that then they can explain it to their customer. And I think this is absolutely going to increase. There's a lot of focus in the airline business actually on this very topic right now.
Hmm.
And one of the other things, frankly, I'm very proud of at Pros is that we are not heading down a path at all. We have nothing in our products and our algorithms today that take any individualized artifact about a person to incorporate in a price or a quote. Number one, all of our algorithms are trained bespokely by individual customer. There's no data sharing across customers. And then as we're coming up with a price, it's really to do, take things like timing and schedules and capacity and costs and those kinds of things into account, not an individual characteristic to produce a price.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. In fact, you mentioned a few human in the loop use cases, validation steps, override options, things like that. I'm seeing a lot. In fact, I think people are, kind of to your point about, I think you said getting out of hand or out of control. I agree with that. I mean, some people are already in the mode of what does the autonomous enterprise look like, and what does the hands-free enterprise look like, and
This is the agent CEO, right? We're going to have
yeah,
an
the
agent
agent
CEO soon.
CEO, and the
Yeah.
rise of the machines, and it's a little sensationalist. I think you're right. I think that the human in the loop use case is going to be a lot more long-lived than people are expecting. Is
Yeah,
my
for
but
sure.
again, who am I, right? I think things are moving at a pace that we've never seen before. So,
They are. Yeah.
um, all right, cool. So, let me ask you a hypothetical question, and then we'll
Mm.
do one more, and then we can wrap up. But the hypothetical is, I know you're only 54 days in. You probably are still in absorb, maybe fire hose mode. Um, but I'm curious, based on what you've learned so far, if and you look at what you know about the market, is there anything that you would do differently, that you would maybe rebuild from scratch, or maybe, is there anything that you would say, what, knowing what I know today, knowing that the technology that exists today, to your point
Yeah.
about the number of agent only companies that are at 100 million you just described, that didn't exist, 12 months ago. So
Exactly.
knowing what you know today, is there anything that you would do differently? Anything that you would build differently based on what you know now?
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah.
And given the fact that it is day 54, take what I say with a little bit of a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that jumps out at me is starting with the beginning of what I call the business conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And the beginning of that conveyor belt is distribution.
Hmm.
I'm speaking very specifically about pros here. And frankly, once again, one of the things that's got me so excited to be here, where I feel like the opportunity is, and frankly, I think to anybody out in the ecosystem that has heard of us or knows of us, frankly, as I know, excited and happy about this, but I would embed distribution into everything that we do, from the partners that we work with, ensuring our product is not just open, but seamlessly integrated with certain partners, certain platforms, et cetera. So, that would be the one thing that I would say, I know we want to do differently moving forward. But as I'm thinking about any product that I want to do, we've talked about PLG, product led growth or sales led growth for a very long time. Product-led growth obviously is what drives, unicorn valuations and, hyper growth and these kinds of things. And obviously, we're going to enter this new era here where the new distribution, the front end is sort of a next generation of product-led growth. It's going to be agent-led growth, right? Where you're now going to be able to create a new capability, get it embedded in an LLM, and suddenly now your uptake rate is going to be even better than when you just had a click to buy option on your website.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true. Um, well, there's so many things. This probably leads to the next question, and then I'll open it up for some final thoughts. But in terms of sort of macro changes, macroeconomic changes, to your point about product-led growth, and I think the way that enterprise software, if we come up a level for a second, the way that enterprise software is going to be consumed, the economics behind it's going to be the way it's going to be consumed is changing, right? In itself, right? The way companies consume and utilize enterprise software is changing. Outcome-based models, right? Things like that. And I'm curious, what is Pro's point of view on that? You might be, I don't actually know this, but you might be on this path already in terms of consumption models that are not necessarily seat based or user based. But tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the economics behind software consumption going forward.
Well, so I'm going to wax poetic a little bit on this one because I've actually got a lot more experience. This going back to literally when cloud infrastructure started, right? When I was at
Yep.
Rackspace. And so, it's a really exciting time, obviously, in software because so many of these consumption models, to your point, are being applied there.
Hmm.
And, if you just start with the consumption model, to your point, where
Yep.
we sort of are today, the public cloud vendors did a great job of tempting us all with these consumption models back, 15, 20 years ago. I can remember actually in the early days of cloud infrastructure, it was all out battle to see who could get the most developers signed up with a credit card
Hmm.
to launch any sort of a test application onto the cloud, right? And then the bet back in that day was that some of the applications ended up launching and making it big, no matter whether it was an enterprise workload or a consumer app or whatever. And so it was a land grab. You wanted to get so that consumption model made a huge impact. But as you started to rapidly grow, cloud economics didn't scale very well. And
Yep.
you certainly see articles published today. One of my favorites is Andreessen Horowitz did one a couple of years ago, sort of asking the question of like, man, should our portfolio companies actually be starting on the public cloud? Because once you get to scale, these consumption models weren't built for a huge at scale type of a deployment, and we're starting to already hear that now a bit in software, right? So now a lot of software companies have gone to a consumption based model. We have a few products that do actually have a consumption based model. As an example, our core price optimization product is actually based on revenue under management, so it flexes as you push more
Got it.
revenue through the product. But the challenge with that, right, is that once you start pushing a huge volume, everyone sort of starts to scream and think, man, I want some more of a reliable, consistent type of a model. So I actually think that there's a bit of a correction that's
Hmm.
already occurring and going to continue to occur on these consumption-based models where everyone's still talking about them, but we don't really love them in reality. And so what I see sort of coming down the pike, and certainly as we're thinking about agents, is you're going to have a whole sort of new ecosystem of sort of think about app stores today where pick your favorite agent is going to have its own store to where people are going to be able to enable their core brain capabilities via that agent. And then you as a consumer can kind of decide, am I a big sports person? Do I want to turn on, a specific sports a thread that's going to feed my agent, et cetera, because data is still going to be the king here, right? Sure, the LLMs can crawl anything that's a public resource. A company itself can go and train an algorithm and an LLM on its own proprietary data and information. But a good example of this is I was actually doing some weather research the other day, and you can ask ChatGPT to give you the four coldest winters in Austin, Texas over the last 100 years, and it can find that, but it's going to give you airport data. And I was really specifically interested in, well, what's going on though 20 miles outside the city when you get outside the glass and the concrete structure, right? Well, it can't give you that information very easily. It can't pinpoint a specific weather station. And so, envision now if I had a AccuWeather, Weather Channel thing that I could enable and pay a $5 subscription, so it can now give me access to a much broader set of raw data to feed that. That's sort of where I think that this is likely going to be headed. And so, consumption model, I just feel like for the most part, consumption model is starting to, peak a little bit. And now we're going to have to start thinking about these new ecosystems and how are we going to enable the data that we can provide or an intelligence algorithm into an LLM and charge for that.
No, that's great. I mean, that's we could probably spend another couple hours on that topic alone. That's quite helpful. I'm going to ask you one final, I'll let you go, Jeff, and that's 54 days in. What are the top three things you're thinking about? What are your priorities right now for pros?
Yeah, well, I've already alluded to one, right? One is
Yeah,
distribution. I could
yeah,
not be more excited about the ecosystem, partnering better with the various CRM players that are out there, and the ERP players that are out there. E-commerce. I mean, look, with that, e-commerce is a space we've not really focused a whole lot on in the
yeah.
past, which is strange, right? We've been very B2B focused. And I think there's a big opportunity in e-commerce. So distribution and this sort of ecosystem of partners is one. The second is, I got to tell you, we are really challenging our internal organization with how do you consume more and more AI internally to totally change the equation of productivity as well as the, information they have at their fingertips to solve customer problems faster or build products faster. And we've got a bunch of internal initiatives right now around how do we drive more AI adoption for us internally. So that would be the second one that I would tell you. And the third I'm going to end with is, look, we do have a very big legacy in the airline space. It's a space we're going to absolutely continue to focus on. And, I have to tell you, I've really been excited talking to our airline customers about what they're looking for in a player right now that's helping them start to evolve more towards experiences, right? All the airlines now don't want to just sell seats. They want to sell you an entire travel experience. And I think we have a great opportunity to be at the forefront of helping them make that transformation towards an experience base.
That's great. That's great, Jeff. Well, that's all the time we have. That's probably all people can listen to at this point in one setting. But we'll have you back when you're 180 days in, and we'll see how
There
things
we
are
go.
going. But Jeff, thank you for your honesty and your clarity. We look forward to hearing your next readout as far as financial outlook and guidance. But with that, we thank everybody for listening and joining us on the Enterprise Edge. Thank you, Jeff, again. Thank you to pros. Wish you
You.
best of luck going forward, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.